to talk to the nation. Obviously, the government, through various sectors, have been giving updates. The Minister of Information has been very busy on it. But I suppose for the populace, looking at the trends that are happening in other parts of the world where, respective presidents have come to kind of make policy statements and give an update as to what is happening, is what is currently being asked to happen. But I was speaking to the Minister of Information yesterday, and he says, much as that is important, the government machinery is working and it's effective. And the president is very active in getting updates as to what is happening. But I suppose at the end of the day, there will be need for the president to, kind of give his side or give some direction or whatever it is that he is prepared with regards this very devastating disease.
Okay, thank you so much, Franklin. We now cross over to State House just to listen to the address that will be done by the president. But before we just cross over, we'll still continue talking to Franklin just to find out how the stories of the coronavirus have been treated by the media.
Well, the various angles. We've heard about the potential economic effects that what is being suggested if we have to go, for example, for a lockdown will have on the economy. Does the country have the capacity to sustain itself without interacting with other countries? The media has also been very active in bringing out stories regarding whether or not people are adhering to the basic messages that being promoted, which are basically stay at home if you really don't have to go anywhere else, wash your hands regularly, maintain a certain distance, 1 meter. What is commonly referred to as social distancing. There also calls for workplaces to consider trimming down their workforce. Some organizations I know are already instituting working virtually, video conferencing, as it were, and only essential workers being allowed. But part of the story, especially for the media, is the reaction by the public. There are still a few people or some people who think this is far away. It is it doesn't affect us that much. Okay. But the truth is,
just before all this got to where it is now, we did see the emergency that was announced. Schools, universities,
absolutely,
secondary schools,
absolutely,
primary schools closing.
And you heard there was some skepticism from certain sectors. No, they're not going to close, and is it necessary to do that? But it's all in the effort to make sure that there is a blameless situation with regards, people's children and their safety. Again, the effect that will have on the calendar is something that we're yet to see. In a general sense, the effect of this situation that we're in hasn't even been felt yet.
Let's talk about the adherence, Franklin. Measures have been put in place, schools have closed, but are we seeing people adhering to those measures? Because when you walk to some malls, you see children there. Are teachers adhering to this? Are they staying home? Are they in schools?
Well, and again, that's another interesting one. When they sent children to homes, they didn't send the kids homes for a holiday. It is still schools period. So some schools that have the capacity are actually continuing with lessons online. But the challenge on parents is to make sure that the children continue with studies. Some schools I know have indicated that the kids will have tests a week after they come back. So the kids have to continuously be in that school. It's not the easiest of things because the children automatically feel that they are on holiday. It's unfortunate that you find some children at shopping malls and taking this as a holiday. In some countries, to institute the issues of adherence, they've had to offload security beyond the police. So what's important for now is for every Zambian to take this very, very seriously. Yes, before it hits the country.
Are we seeing this adherence in the markets?
It's interesting. I think let's give credit to many places where before you enter a market, there's some buckets of water. You can wash your hands, and the messages has crept in. Again, in a chat with the minister, the issue that needed clarification with regards what you should use to wash your hands. Is it supposed to be as quote unquote sophisticated as what is the sanitizer? It sounds very elitist. But it's basically soap and water, at least according to the conversations we're having, so that people are not, you know, depressed because they don't have the hand sanitizer, which we're told
So hand wash is
gone up.
important.
It's just hand wash, yes.
Okay. Now, we do see the lockdown in South Africa. That's just like our neighboring country. And people are worried, why are borders not closed? Just highlight to us what the minister said on closing borders.
Well, depending on the situation, those are options that are open, and those are options we're made to believe are being discussed. Whether are we at the level where that should happen? Obviously, the experts are informing the president regarding where we're at, because remember there are levels with regards to the effect of this disease, on different countries. But also, what's important again in this scenario is just watch what is happening in other parts of the world. Strong economies are struggling, they're panicking, and you have to be realistic with that kind of situation or economy that we have. Would we be able to? That's why the government is depending on self-discipline, on people to respond to the key messages that are at the moment thought to be the best in preventing transmission.
Highlight on the self-quarantine.
Right. So from what I've come to understand, it's you being in isolation, especially if you've had international travel. You want to protect not just the community, but your family as well. Here's the hard part for many people. The self-quarantine means that even in the home, especially if you are exposed or you think you've been exposed, you want to protect your children, you want to protect your spouse. So you stay isolated as much as you can for at least 2 weeks. Now, who's monitoring that? And that's why the government and health experts are relying on personal discipline, on personal, awareness about the need to protect each other, the need to keep away from those that might be innocent and vulnerable, and especially the elderly, because apparently, as it has really affected the senior citizens, so to speak. So you want to protect your grandmother, you want to protect your, aging dad or mother from, this disease.
Let's dwell a bit on the health workers. We are seeing they're doing a recommendable job, and they're the frontliners.
Absolutely. They're what we might call at the moment the unsung heroes. They're putting their lives at risk all over the world. Many doctors have lost their lives. It has been reported in international media. They've and again, remember, this is a brand new virus, or at least from what we're being told. So everybody's trying to understand it, and in the process, some mistakes have been made, and it is expected that Zambia is learning and watching so that that is avoided. It doesn't happen here. The cause, perhaps for if it gets to that, those that are retired, can they be called back? Just to increase the numbers. There's pressure. We in our programming, if we've called a few doctors for some of our programs, and they're telling us, listen, there's a little bit of pressure. There's a lot of demand for us to be in our stations, and maybe when the situation eases, which should be quick, we expect that to continue.
Franklin, we'd like to thank you so much for coming.
Well, we're here and still following what is going on.
We now cross over to State House as His Excellency Edgar Lungu will address the nation on the coronavirus. Stay tuned.
Countrymen and women, the world today faces one of its greatest adversaries that threatens mankind, the coronavirus disease. The coronavirus disease, also called COVID-19, has decimated lives across the world. Countrymen and women, this virus is mean. A few weeks ago, it was heard from a distance. Today, it is in the neighborhood. Today, you and I are not safe anymore. And until we comply with what the health authorities are saying, it may spread quickly and endanger our lives. Countrymen and women, Zambia is landlocked, and that means with a crisis of this magnitude, we shall find ourselves under forced lockdown if all our neighbors close their borders. This situation would make us economically vulnerable and weaker. In coming up with measures to stem the spread of COVID-19, my government has devised a phased strategy that will take into consideration interventions for the low and high income groups, low and high density areas, rural and urban areas. It is with this in mind that essential businesses dealing in goods and services will be kept running. Countrymen and women, I have gone around the city and I've seen for myself that many among us are not taking this COVID-19 seriously. I've seen multitudes patronizing bars or freely hugging and shaking hands at funerals, church, contrary to health advice. Let me say this. If this lifestyle has not changed in the past few weeks, then you are doing something wrong and endangering both yourself, your neighbor, and your loved ones. Countrymen and women, it is the duty of my government to ensure every Zambian is protected from this disease. My government has been taking proactive measures even before the current cases were identified and pronounced. I went ahead and directed that schools, colleges, and universities be closed prematurely to protect pupils and students, teachers and lecturers. Exactly 9 days after the first 2 COVID-19 cases were announced, 10 more cases have now been identified, bringing the number to 12. 11 of them had traveled abroad in recent weeks, and acquired the disease from outside the country. One had come into contact with them locally, and they have all been quarantined. Countrymen and women, you are all aware that my cabinet has already approved the COVID-19 contingency plan, including its budget, and directed the Ministry of Finance to mobilize resources to enable line ministries, private sector, and other key stakeholders to contain and combat the spread of the coronavirus disease in a multi-sectorial and coordinated manner. Countrymen and women, let me now state the measures my government has started undertaking and will continue to undertake in phase 1 to mitigate the impact of COVID-19. 1, the Zambian missions abroad and Department of Immigration must be alert to review the issuance of visas for people wanting to travel to Zambia, as well as at all ports of entry into the country for all travelers from countries affected by COVID-19. Travelers will be allowed entry into Zambia. However, upon screening, those who exhibit symptoms will be quarantined in a medical facility for treatment, while all other travelers without symptoms will be quarantined for at least 14 days at their own cost. 2, government has suspended non-essential foreign travel, particularly to countries which have confirmed COVID-19 cases. 3, public gatherings such as conferences, weddings, funerals, festivals are to be restricted to at least not more than 50 people, subject to them complying with public health authority guidelines. 4, restaurants must operate only on a takeaway and delivery basis. 5, all bars, nightclubs, cinemas, gyms, and casinos must close. 6, all international flights to and from Harry Mwanga Nkumbula, Simon Mwansaka Pwepwe, and Mfuwe international airports are suspended. Instead, all international flights should land and depart from Kenneth Kaunda International Airport only to ensure efficient and effective screening of travelers, as well as following them up by our health authorities. Countrymen and women, the measures I've just announced shall be effected from midnight on Thursday, 26th March 2020, and shall be observed for the initial period of 14 days. However, my government shall constantly review these measures depending on how the pandemic evolves. I will, at an opportune time, provide further update and guidance on the coronavirus disease and government's continued response. In the meantime, the Council of Ministers on Disaster Management shall be providing regular updates periodically, as has been the case. Countrymen and women, I know there will be a significant negative social, economic impact to our communities and the country at large. Therefore, all these measures are critical to ensuring that we avert an imminent social, economic, and health crisis. Countrymen and women, let me take this opportunity to thank the donor community, business houses, NGOs, traditional leaders, the church, and citizens for actively supporting and working with the government in addressing and mitigating this pandemic at various levels. Remember, we are at war, a public health war against COVID-19, where everyone must stand up and be counted. The health guidelines of frequently washing hands, sanitizing, cleaning our environment, not shaking hands, and observing social distance from each other are key to our survival. This fight cannot be won without community participation. Let us be each other's brother and sister's keeper and encourage one another to seek medical attention whenever one feels unwell and exhibits flu-like symptoms. I have no doubt that together we shall fight and conquer the coronavirus disease in Zambia. I thank you and God bless you all.
that was the